Hi there, I'm Lisa Taylor. So nice to be here. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know where you're watching from. So I was listening to a conversation between Brene Brown and Dr. John Gottman and his wife, Dr. Julie Schwartz Gottman. And they've done a lot of research on relationships and love. And I guess Dr. John Gottman is known for being able to observe a couple for 15 minutes and tell you with 90% accuracy whether they'll stay married or not. So anyway, very interesting. But one of the things that they were talking about recently is in relationships, there's always sort of a bid for connection from one person to the other. And we have three different responses to those bids for connection. And they can be small things. We either turn towards it, we turn away from it, or we turn against it. So here's an example they gave. They said, so one person says, "Oh my gosh, look at that blue jay outside." And one person says, "Oh yeah, look at that. That's kind of cool." That's turning towards. Turning away would be, "Huh," or ignoring. Turning against would be, "Don't you see I'm working here? Why are you bothering me?" Right? So I started thinking about, what does it mean, because the Christ is constantly communicating with us, constantly sending bids for connection to us. Are we turning towards what the Christ is speaking? Mrs. Eddy in Science and Health talks about the Christ being the true idea of voicing good, the divine message from God to men speaking to the human consciousness. So the Christ is constantly communicating to the human consciousness, the true idea of voicing good. It's constant. But are we turning towards that? Are we turning away from it? Or are there times when we're actually turning against it? And what the Gottmans found out in sort of this big study that they did was those partnerships where turning toward was the majority of the response. Those were very strong, committed relationships that had legs. They would last a long time. Those that were turning away or turning against generally didn't last. So it's this kind of relationship building, the ones where we're turning towards, it's like this bid for connection that's put out there. If we're turning towards God, what Mrs. Eddy talks about, turn your thoughts in the right direction, form perfect models in thought, and then turn your gaze in the right direction and then walk that way. Forming perfect models in thought and then going towards that and holding them before your gaze continually until you carve them out in grand and noble lives. So are we turning toward what we desire in our life, the godlike model, the spiritual identity of who we are? Are we turning away from that and arguing for the limitation, arguing for the pain or the suffering, or diving into, why this is going on? What would turning against look like? Where we're angry with God, I guess, or we're angry with, I don't hear that message that I'm yearning to hear. So I just wanted to put this out there to say, be aware of whether or not we're turning towards the Christ message, or we're turning away from it, or we're actually turning against it. And the more we turn towards the Christ message, the more we will build that relationship. We will have confidence in that relationship, and we will carve out that perfect model in our life. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was a really cool idea. So thank you, Doctors Gottman and Gottman, or Dr. Gottman and Dr. Schwartz Gottman, for that research. It's very interesting. And we can apply these things that we find in sort of the human realm to our spiritual walk and ask ourselves questions and go deeper and discover more. Mrs. Eddy actually has a lot to say about turning, and the Bible does too. So I invite you to go look at that. It's really interesting. So lots of love, you guys. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.